Hey there, I'm Angenette Levy. Welcome to my channel. If you haven't already, do me a big favor. Please subscribe. Also, hit that bell so you get notifications anytime a new video drops. Also, I would love it if you'd hit that thumbs up button, hit that like button. It helps the video in the algorithm. Let's talk about Cincinnati, the city of Cincinnati, the big old mess going on in the city of Cincinnati. There is a problem with violent crime downtown. There's a problem. And it's rooted in many, many things. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but I'm going to let the FOP president, somebody in charge of representing the cops, the Cincinnati Police Department, talk a little bit more about that because he knows more about it than I do. But I have been covering crime for 20 years now, and I know what stops violent crime. I know what the cops need to do legally and in protecting people's rights to prevent as much violent crime as possible. So I know a little bit about this stuff. First of all, I want to get to the big news, though, of the week. Cincinnati Police Chief Terri Theetge, she was hired as the new chief in the last couple of years. I used to talk to her every now and again when I worked in local news at Local 12. I haven't talked to her in years and years, but she became the new police chief. And now the city wants her gone. Specifically, the mayor, Aftab Pureval, wants her gone. And so really the residents of the city of Cincinnati years ago, they approved this issue 5, and it put basically the police chief, put them really under the control of the city manager, the city administration. They basically call the shots when it comes to these people. So they don't really have as much freedom, if you will, very sadly, to do something like fight crime. It's really weird. It's really weird. I'm not sure it's the right thing. But there have been a lot of problems with violent crime this year in the city of Cincinnati. I'm sure you guys all saw that big fracas downtown over the summer, the big fight outside that bar where this woman, Holly, got just socked in the face as she came out of a bar. A number of people were arrested and charged in that incident. Then there was this whole thing about whether the other side of the fence, the other people involved should have been arrested. There was a man later charged, a big brouhaha over whether he should have been charged in the first place. It doesn't sound like the cops believed that he should be charged. They looked at him as a crime victim. There were people on city council who said, no, he needs to be charged. Well, guess what? None of the cops would sign the complaint. So a Cincinnati police captain actually signed the complaint. And this was really it appears, to appease certain people in city administration who said, no, you're going to charge this guy. You're going to do this. Well, guess what? I think this guy's going to end up suing the city and winning just based on what I've been told and what I've been hearing about the facts of this case. Plus, there's video out all over the place on this. But let's get back to the whole issue of violent crime downtown and the police chief. So Police Chief Terri Theetge, she gets called back from a police chief's conference in Denver. And so I am being told that the city manager, Cheryl Long, was told by the mayor, Aftab Pureval, so I want her fired. And basically, you can fire her or you will be fired. Whatever, dude. So there are a whole host of problems with that. Also, I am told that they wanted her to sign an NDA and possibly, we're going to offer her a settlement of some sort, a payoff of some sort. Aftab Pureval, back when he ran the clerk of court's office, which he says he did a really good job at it. He didn't. I covered that whole mess back then. He canned a bunch of people that he said were doing jobs that needed to be cut to save money, and they were patronage jobs. Well, he had people sign NDAs. County commissioners didn't sign off on that. It was a mess. There were lawsuits filed. It was a disaster. It was a disaster. You don't get to make county employees sign NDAs. This is not a private business. You are not a king. Well, guess what? You're not going to get away with it this time either, because Terri Theetge has hired a guy named Stephen M. This is very important because Stephen M. cleaned the city of Cincinnati's cleaned their clock. He represented Fire Chief Michael Washington, who was also fired. He was fired back in 2023 by the city of Cincinnati. His claim was that like one person didn't like him, so he got canned after serving with the fire department for many, many years. And I used to run into Michael Washington every once in a while. When I worked at Channel 12, I would see him like maybe at a fire early in the morning. I think he was even the PIO for a short time. So I haven't talked to him in years either. Well, guess what? Michael Washington, he won his lawsuit against the city of Cincinnati, his federal lawsuit this past summer. He was represented by Stephen M. of the Finney Law Firm. The Finney Law Firm has run up against Aftab Pureval and his tactics before. And I can go into a lot more detail about this another time. I can take you all the way back to when Aftab Pureval ran for Congress and the whole disaster that was and the shenanigans that came out through that. I mean, dumpster fire, total dumpster fire. That involved the exposing of this whole thing about the NDAs and making employees sign those when they were canned, etc. So back to now. Stephen M. is representing Terri Theetge now. He was retained, I think, late Thursday night to represent Terri Theetge in her talks with the city. I don't think she's going to back down, but I don't know that for certain. But she has a lawyer, same lawyer who represented fired fire chief Michael Washington. He won. The federal courts determined that the city of Cincinnati violated Michael Washington's rights. He was not granted any form of due process. The city of Cincinnati is going to pay through the nose. They are going to pay him a lot of money. Michael Washington is getting a big fat check. I am telling you that right now. And the taxpayers for the city of Cincinnati, they're paying for it. They will pay for it. It's unfortunate. And this is another way in which the city has been mismanaged. And just a side note here, I know what it's like to win a lawsuit against the city of Cincinnati because I was part of one years ago with the whole Gang of Five text message disaster. We won. And so I know what it's like to go up against them. They stall, they delay, they wouldn't release records to us. And they're just willing to just waste taxpayer money on crap. And they should have just released the records to us. We won. That's a story for another day, too. So Aftab Pureval wants Terri Theetge gone because there have been all these shootings down on Fountain Square. And the last week, we're 3 weeks away from an election. He's fearing he looks bad. So to talk about all of this, I'm going to bring in the FOP president, Ken Kober. He has been really busy talking to everybody about this. Ken, I've been watching this whole thing unfold, and it looks like Chief Theetge, we know, I guess, was asked to resign. She's not going to do that, from what I understand. And obviously, this is weeks before an election. The mayor, he does not look good in all of this. The city's on fire and God knows what he's doing. What is going on here? I mean, we know there were the shootings on Fountain Square. She's being faulted, Chief Theetge is, with not taking care of this and everything. But what is your view on this? What is your behind the scenes view on this as somebody who represents the cops?
Sure. Well, somebody that's given 37 years of their life to the city of Cincinnati, to treat somebody this way, to me, it's shameful. It's shameful that the city would do something like this. And it's no doubt this is done, 3 weeks before an election. They're trying to use her as a scapegoat for crime. But ironically enough, we just had a homicide this morning at 3rd and Sycamore downtown. And all while, they're trying to push her out. And these things continue to happen. She's not the problem. As long as we have a police chief that is under the thumb of an elected official, it doesn't matter who the chief is. You're gonna have to listen to what the mayor tells you to do or the city manager tells you to do. Otherwise, they're going to push you out. We've seen this before. We saw it with James Craig in 2011. He was the first chief under the issue 5, that charter amendment that takes the protection of the police chief away out of the collective bargaining agreement with the FOP and makes them a quasi at-will employee. And James Craig came in and after 2 years, they got tired of the fact that he wouldn't succumb to the pressure of City Hall, and they cut bait with him. And in my opinion, this is the chief is finally getting tired of being told to do things that she just doesn't think is right. And the end result is now it's like, well, you don't want to listen to me, then we're going to fire you. And that's exactly what we're seeing.
So cops, the police chief, she wants to fight crime. So what, in your view, is she not being allowed to do to bring crime down?
Quite honestly, I think it comes to being more and more vocal about cops going out and doing proactive work. She kind of alluded to it Tuesday in this press conference, and then ironically, the next day they're wanting her to resign, or they're going to terminate her. In a perfect world, I think what she would say is, go out and stop these people that are committing crimes. The small crimes are the ones that, if you address them, it's the whole broken windows theory. And right now, we're just not seeing it. There is no proactive policing that's really going on. It's because a culture has been created in this city that, we don't really want you doing this.
I know what you mean by proactive policing. What do you mean by proactive policing? Letting the little things slide? Because, elaborate on that a little bit more, so just people get what you're talking about.
Proactive policing, it comes from making traffic stops. You see somebody commits a traffic violation, you stop them and you investigate further to see, do they have drugs in their car? Do they have guns in their car? They know who the drug dealers are. They know who the people that are carrying guns are. And there's kind of been a hands-off approach. The city came out with a memo saying that there's no expectation for officers to enforce people smoking marijuana in public. So cops see that and they go, okay, well, there's no expectation. Well, what's that mean? If we go and actually enforce this, what's going to happen? And the answer is, and we saw this several years ago with an officer who stopped somebody in over the Rhine, ends up leading into a fight, and the city hung him out to dry. So it's like, well, why do this then? If we're not going to have the full support of city council, of the mayor, of the city manager to go out and proactively protect the city, and the cops are like, okay, fine. Well, I'm going to do what I have to do. Then I'm going to answer the radio. I'll take care of the calls for service that I have to take care of, and I just won't give them any more. And that's what this comes down to. The mayor believes that throwing money at the police department is support, and it's not. It's just not.
Interesting. A lot of people will say, like, well, stopping people for smoking pot and stuff like that doesn't do any good. What good do you think that does?
Well, what it does is it sends a message to these people that, one, the police are paying attention and that they're not going to tolerate this. We're not going to tolerate the littlest of crimes. So understand that, if you're going to do something more, then you're likely going to be arrested. But, this also comes into this culture that's been created with, the court system. And these cops, a lot of them are just absolutely discouraged. They arrest somebody only for them to be right back out. That we've seen it time and time again. We had an officer assaulted just 2 days ago now. That was maced, 2 officers and a civilian that were maced by a suspect. Cop gets punched in the mouth or punched in the head, trying to arrest somebody that was shoplifting at Kroger. They're out the next day. They were given a $1,000 bond at 10% for like 4 different crimes, and that's it. So what the message that sends is, we're not keeping anybody locked up. So why put yourself in danger? Why do all of these things if the end results are going to be let right back out?
So what do you see happening? Do you think Chief Theetge is going to resign? I just, I haven't talked to her in years, but I just, I know she comes from a long, family of law enforcement. I mean, she's a Neville. Her brothers were cops, her dad was a cop. So it's like, what's going on? This is somebody who comes from a family of cops who wanted to protect and serve and, do a good job and do good things for the city. So do you think she's going to resign?
I sure hope she doesn't. I hope she fights the city. And I'll tell you, the one thing that the city has done throughout all this is they've united the rank and file. Even cops that didn't necessarily support her being the chief, because everybody's going to, they're going to pick sides. They're going to pick who they think should be the chief, but they're all united. I've had more cops have got a hold of me and have said, listen, really, she wasn't my pick. I wasn't crazy about her being the chief, but she's being railroaded. I mean, it has been an insane amount of cops that have reached out to me showing support for her. Mm-hmm. I've had cops that are like, hey, I know this is kind of, not the norm, but will you send me her phone number? I want to call her. I want to talk to her. I want to tell her how much we support her. So like I said, the way that she's been treated, everybody recognizes has been very poor, and it certainly has united the rank and file, certainly on this topic.
Say what you will about, Mayor John Cranley, but he took care of business. He did what needed to be done. He was a strong mayor. A lot of people do not see Aftab Pureval as a strong mayor. I've gotten a lot of calls from people who think he's a horrible mayor, honestly, and that we look like a joke. This city looks like a joke. What are you hearing about in the community? Because the business community's fired up, and they're laying all this downtown mess at his feet. I mean, they think he's a mess. So what are you hearing about as far, this city votes Democratic for mayors? It's, highly unlikely this Republican candidate is going to win. But what are you hearing around town about the mayoral race? I mean, because we know that this whole thing is about politics.
Yeah, I can tell you, and you're right, the business community is fired up, and they should be. And the police are equally fired up. It serves everybody well to have a vibrant, safe downtown. And I've met with business leaders. I was talking to a business leader as early as this morning about some of these things, and they want to find a fix, and it needs to be fixed. And I can tell you right now, the citizens that I've talked to, that cops are talking to, it's going to be a real interesting mayoral race. They're seeing signs for Republican candidates in neighborhoods that they've never seen before. So it's really, really going to be interesting. It shows you how upset the city is when you're seeing places that are flipping political parties because of how bad things have been.
We'll see what happens. We'll keep an eye on this situation. What a mess. Ken Kober, thank you.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
As things stand currently at the time of this recording, there's apparently discussions going back. As things stand right now, there are discussions going on back and forth between the city manager's office, which really is supposed to run the city, but they do what the mayor really wants and what council tells them to do, and Terri Theetge's attorneys. We'll see what happens. All right, so let me know what you think of this video. I will keep you posted on any new developments, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's just a big hot mess in the city of Cincinnati. Stay tuned. I'll see you another time.